Now, as promised, the news in detail. Pakistan has rejected the Indian Army chief's claims of destroying 3 terror camps in Azad Kashmir. Calling the statement disappointing in a tweet, military spokesman Major General Asif Ghafoor said there are no such camps inside the territory. He said the Indian Army made such claims to fulfill their vested domestic interests. Ghafoor said the Indian embassy in Pakistan is welcome to bring foreign diplomats and media for a visit to areas across the LOC. He challenged New Delhi to prove the existence of any such entity on the ground. While raising questions about India's increasing ceasefire violations on the line of control, Congress leader Akhilesh Singh says the government makes claims of surgical strikes in Pakistan to divert attention from core issues. Speaking to reporters in Patna, he said New Delhi makes such claims whenever there are elections in major states. This comes a day before elections in the 2 states of Haryana and Maharashtra. This is the BJP's first electoral contest since Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government revoked occupied Kashmir's special status on the 5th of August. In 2016, the BJP-led government claimed to have conducted strikes inside Pakistan months before the elections in Uttar Pradesh. India violated Pakistan's airspace again and claimed the attack of militant training centers 2 months before national polls. Pakistan has repeatedly briefed the world about Modi's plans of staging a false flag operation for political gains. Well, 2 more British lawmakers have raised their voice against India's clampdown in occupied Kashmir. Speaking at a Kashmir conference in London, MPs Matt Rhoda and Phillips Lee supported the right to self-determination of Kashmiris. Speaking at the event, Rhoda said he was shocked to learn that 9 million people were living in radio silence since August 5th. Lee said the UN must implement its Security Council resolutions to settle the Kashmir issue once and for all. Meanwhile, hundreds of Kashmiris and locals held an anti-India protest in the Canadian city of Montreal. Protesters said they are speaking for Kashmiris suffering at the hands of Indian forces for the past 7 decades. New Delhi's lockdown and communication blackout in occupied Kashmir has entered its 78th day. In other news, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a congressional delegation have made an unannounced visit to Afghanistan. The delegation met top Afghan leadership, including President Ashraf Ghani, and discussed security, economic development, and governance. In a statement, Pelosi said her delegation was briefed by U.S. diplomats on reconciliation efforts with the Taliban. She said the delegation stressed that Afghan women must be at the table for reconciliation talks. The U.S. Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, also arrived in Kabul in a bid to restart stalled peace talks with the Taliban. In an interview, Esper said the number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan could be reduced to 8,600. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had said Washington remains committed to peace and stability in Afghanistan. Now, North Korea says the U.S. and South Korea must come up with new solutions for the current standoff in the Korean Peninsula. Vice Minister of the People's Armed Forces Kim Hyong-ryong warned that hostile policies towards Pyongyang will lead to serious consequences. He said the situation has relapsed into a dangerous, vicious cycle of worsening tensions because of the actions of the U.S. and South Korea. Pyongyang expressed discontent at the lack of progress in negotiations with Washington. Earlier this month, North Korea threatened to end denuclearization talks, accusing the U.S. and South Korea of provocative actions. Well, in South Sudan, main opposition leader Riek Machar says he cannot form a unity government with President Salva Kiir next month. Last year, Machar and Kiir signed a peace pact to end a 5-year civil war by forming a coalition government. Speaking to a visiting UN delegation, Machar said parties have failed to agree on ways to integrate the army. The UN Security Council delegation said that problems identified by Machar can be solved by the 12th November deadline. The implementation of the pact has stalled, as the government is unable to fund disarmament and integration of all armed factions. South Sudan split away from Sudan in 2011 after decades of war, but it plunged into conflict after Kiir sacked Machar as vice president in 2013. Well, in news coming out of Lebanon now, Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri has agreed to a package of reforms with government partners to ease an economic crisis. Now, despite al-Hariri's reforms pledges, a nationwide general strike has been called today to demand an overhaul of the government. More on this report.
Danny Mortada has been protesting on the streets of Beirut since 17th October. He is unemployed but strongly believes it's his calling to put forward the people's demands and fight injustice.
When I see the Sunnis, the Shiites, the Christians, and the Druze from all regions, they don't care where from, how, and why. All united with one hand. This is alone energy.
The ongoing unrest in Lebanon was triggered by a proposed tax on WhatsApp calls. The measure was quickly scrapped. But anger over what was perceived as another attempt to squeeze the citizens dry has not abated.
We are here since the protest started, and we're not leaving until our demands are met. As they say, we are the children of the streets in 2015, 2011, and 2009. We were going to the streets during all those years, and we are continuing. We are staying in the streets.
Lebanese Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri has proposed a tax-free solution to the country's economic woes, but this will not be an easy task, considering the country's public debt stands at $86 billion, which is over 150% of the national GDP, according to Lebanon's finance ministry.
Canadians are voting today in a general election seen largely as a referendum on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's leadership. Surveys predict a tight race as Trudeau's popularity plunged after that blackface scandal. Top contenders in the polls are the ruling Liberals, the Progressive Conservatives led by Andrew Scheer. Healthcare was the top issue during this year's election campaign, with the climate crisis not far behind. Voters will cast their ballots in 338 precincts across the country. 170 seats are needed to be able to form a majority government. Pre-poll surveys, though, show that neither Trudeau nor Scheer is anywhere near that threshold. Well, Evo Morales is leading Bolivia's presidential election race, securing 45% of votes with most ballots counted. He is likely, though, to face a second-round runoff against rival Carlos Mesa after failing to secure an outright majority. This will be the first time that Morales faces a runoff vote in his 3 consecutive successful presidential polls. His rival Mesa celebrated his triumph in getting to the second round with 38% of the votes. South Korean-born evangelical pastor Chi Hyun-chung surprisingly came third with 9% of votes. Chi's support for either candidate will be crucial for the second round on December 15th. In Switzerland, meanwhile, exit polls there suggest that the far-right Swiss People's Party is leading in parliamentary elections. The center-left Socialists are set to take second place, while the Greens Party is expected to finish in fourth place. The Greens campaign was focused on challenges faced by the country due to global warming. In Sunday's polls, 200 seats of the lower house and 46 seats of the Council of States were up for grabs. Elsewhere in Europe, Spain's government says Catalan protests have caused huge economic losses during the past 7 days of unrest. The demos began against the sentences of Catalan separatist leaders by the Supreme Court. According to Spanish government statistics, the violence has so far injured more than 600 people, including 288 police officers. The government has blamed that the protests resulted in an estimated loss of 2.5 million euros in Barcelona alone. Earlier, hundreds of anti-separation demonstrators took to the streets on Sunday night in Barcelona after a week of separatist unrest. Protesters called for an end to violence. They said Spain's central government is not doing enough to end the chaos. And coming up next in this news bulletin, Hotels in Thailand struggle to fill rooms. And a tech giant's arts and culture showcases history. Welcome back. Now, the death toll from Chile's anti-government demonstrations has risen to 8 as violent protests there continue. Demonstrations erupted over price hikes and social inequality on Friday. The government has declared a 15-day emergency amid escalating tensions in 7 major cities. After an emergency meeting, President Sebastián Piñera deployed troops to the city for the first time. 5 people were burned to death in a clothing factory fire near the capital Santiago after the premises were ransacked by protesters. Defying the emergency curfew, hundreds of protesters have stormed metro stations in Santiago. Police and recently deployed military are using tear gas to disperse demonstrators. In Bangladesh, 4 people have been killed and 50 others wounded in clashes with police during protests against an alleged blasphemous social media post by a Hindu man. Police fired live ammunition on demonstrators after 20,000 came out in Bola Island against government inaction. Police say they responded in self-defense after protesters pelted rocks, injuring security officials. Medics said the death toll can rise, with at least 7 of 43 wounded sustaining life-threatening injuries. The Bangladeshi Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, has dismissed these protests as false propaganda against a minority community. Confirming the Prime Minister's statement, police said all the hackers have been arrested. In news coming out of India, farmers there have set fire to crop residue in the northern Haryana state, contributing to the world's air pollution. The smoke from Punjab travels to neighboring regions, leading to a spike in pollution levels. This report explains.
With the onset of winter, bad breathing air is back in India. Smoke emanates from scores of fields across farm states of Punjab and Haryana. These states are notoriously known for setting fire to large areas of wheat and paddy in preparation for the next season, despite government ban on the practice.
Yes, we know that burning of stubble harms the environment, but we need to remove it. It prepares our farmland for the next crops.
Stubble burning is seen as one of the key factors contributing to the region's smog and dust every year during October and November.
Crop residue burning pollution triggers respiratory issues and eye burning, and many more health complications. To stop this, first we need to educate farmers on alternative methods, and the government has to work from their end.
Climate activists say India is home to 15 of 20 most polluted cities in the world. Air quality in New Delhi has nosedived, with prominent areas, including the presidential palace, covered in smog.
The Pakistani Navy has joined Italy-based 32-member trans-regional maritime network, expanding its maritime-related information access. The TRMN group was established in 2008 to facilitate the exchange of maritime information at trans-regional levels. The Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Zafar Mahmoud Abbasi, signed the note of accession in the presence of Italian envoy Stefano Pontecorvo. He said the Joint Maritime Information Coordination Center of the Pakistani Navy is rapidly evolving as a regional hub of maritime-related information. Well, for decades, Thai beaches have been the most sought-out tourist destinations in Asia. However, this year, hotels there are struggling to fill rooms, even on the seaside resort of Pattaya. Overall, the country has seen a drastic decline in tourists. Find out the reason in this report.
Hotels on Thailand's most popular holiday island have been forced to slash prices, with rooms left vacant and beaches sparse. This is because of plunge in Chinese visitors caused by the US trade war and a stronger baht.
I think it's since June, it's been the same every month, and it's After coming here for 15 low seasons, I've never seen anything as bad as what it is at the moment.
Tourism accounts for 18% of Thailand's gross domestic product, and Chinese holidaymakers make up more than a quarter of total arrivals. According to official figures, around 2.2 million people from the country visited in 2018. Numbers for January-September were down almost a fifth on year.
The number of tourists to Phuket may be the same as last year. It is not grow in the number, but the revenue still bigger than last year.
Looking to expand, the Thai tourist officials are now looking towards newer countries, but for now the lower arrivals is evident on the streets of Phuket.
A 3-hour rescue mission has saved Jimmy the border collie in Australia. The pooch was stranded at the base of a cliff at Bells Beach in the state of Victoria. State emergency personnel and the Country Fire Authority attempted the dangerous 15-meter climb down the cliff. They strapped Jimmy into a harness and made the slow climb back. Jimmy had his owner's telephone number on his collar tag. Both the owner and the pooch were relieved to be reunited with smiles and the wagging tail. History fanatics love visiting heritage sites and discovering more about these places, but not everyone can visit every site. This is where Google's art and culture platform comes in.
Google's Maya project is an online compilation of artworks from partner museums accessible to everyone. This platform contains articles, videos, old photographs, and 3D models, allowing viewers to delve into the Mayan culture. Central to the project is a cast of the ancient city of Peleng's palace steps, brought back to London by Victorian explorer Alfred Maudslay.
The significance of this project is about preserving the Maya story, preserving the ancient Maya. And Victorian explorers were there. Alfred Maudslay, for example, over 100 years ago, was there to take photographs and make plaster casts of ancient Mayan history.
The curators are hopeful this can be first step towards digitalizing more artworks at London Museum. Google has envisioned the project as allowing people in modern times to dive deeper into the lives of those who lived before us millions of years ago. For the Mayan series, it aims to understand especially the role of women and workers in this society through relics.
One of the kind of slightly smaller research side projects that we did was looking at female involvement in Maudslay's or others' expeditions at the time, or the involvement of the local workers, of the local communities in the work of, for example, Victorian explorers, which was a completely different topic than we had expected to cover when we started the whole project.
With this and a lot more in store at Google, curators believe the future of technology and art will continue in incredible ways.
Two new typhoons are moving towards the shores of Japan, with the country still reeling from record-breaking storm Hagibis. Local media say the number of deaths in Typhoon Hagibis has risen to 80. Japan's meteorological agency says Typhoon Neoguri is expected to hit Tokyo's south and southwestern coast on October 22nd. Another Typhoon Boaloi, approaching from the south, will reach the east coast of Japan on the night of October 26th. The storms have estimated winds up to 100 miles per hour with a pressure of 1,000 hectopascals at its center. Let's now find out what weather conditions are like around the world. And you're all updated. Thank you for watching this bulletin here at Indus News. Thanks for watching.